What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Sector for Nerds, and welcome back to another episode of Star Wars: The Clone Wars Retro Discussions. Today we're here to talk about Season 5, Episode 20, The Wrong Jedi. This episode was directed by Dave Filoni and written by Charles Murray. The cookie for this episode, probably the cookie that has stuck with me the most out of any single cookie in this show, and one that I think we all have to keep in mind. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, every day of our lives. Never give up hope, no matter how dark things seem. And I know a lot of times that can seem hard, but trust me, we gotta do it. Before we begin today, you guys, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also, click that hype button. It's supposed to be really helpful for small content creators like me. So if you just scroll over, click the hype button, I'd really appreciate it. Alright, intro guy, let the people know what's been going down in this arc the last couple of episodes. Take it away. AHSOKA Tano captured. While on the run to prove her innocence, Padawan Tano teamed up with the deadly Asajj Ventress to find the rogue Jedi who framed Ahsoka for murder. The Jedi Council sent Anakin Skywalker and Master Plo Koon to track Ahsoka down and bring her back to the temple. Now, captured and imprisoned, Ahsoka faces punishment for crimes she did not commit. Thank you, intro guy. So, we're here, guys. This is the Season 5 finale. This is the last episode of the Clone Wars before the show gets canceled. Now, this episode right here that we're going to talk about today is one of my favorite episodes in the entire show. Between the Siege of Mandalore episodes in Season 7, The Lawless, and this episode, easily my 6 favorite episodes, no question. This is probably the episode of our discussions that, while looking forward to, was also kind of scared to get to. This episode has always carried a special place in my heart. I'll kind of get into it more maybe a little bit later, but I'll admit to you guys, every time that I thought about, talking about this episode and the things that I want to say about it, like especially as we get towards the end of it, I would just start getting really emotional. And I'm not one to necessarily do that when I'm recording videos. Obviously, there's been a couple of rare occasions, but you know what I mean. So if, that does tend to happen, it is what it is. I guess on the bright side, you won't have to see it. But this one hits different. This episode really hits different. So the episode starts out with Tarkin wanting to expel Ahsoka from the Order so the Senate can give her a trial. Of course this was going to happen, right? Once the Senate found out who the potential murderer was, we gotta bring him in for trial and give the people justice. The Jedi say that they're going to give Ahsoka a fair trial, which Tarkin says would be biased. Tarkin having the Senate do it too would be just as biased, you freaking hypocrite. Mace says the council will act as it deems necessary and ends the transmission with Tarkin. And then Obi-Wan's like, look, we need to stand together with Ahsoka. Stand up to the Senate here. And everyone else is like, but yet there is evidence that she is the one who did it. And then Mace says, look, if we do what you suggest, it might seem as an opposition to the Senate. Jedi and Senate are supposed to be two different things right now, but just kind of goes to show you how times have changed. So they put Ahsoka on trial before the Jedi. She pleads that she's not guilty. They ask her a bunch of questions. Anakin, though, can see right through all this. He's like, you guys have already made your decision, haven't you? This meeting is just a formality. And Yoda does say, reached a decision we have, though not in total agreement, are we? I think by the people that were not in total agreement, I would put Obi-Wan and Yoda in that side of the not in total agreement thing with what's going on. And maybe Plo Koon. Everyone else probably couldn't have cared less. And it's one of the things that really annoyed me about the Jedi here. And I think really this show grew with its audience. I was growing with it. I was 8 years old when this thing started. Fast forward to Season 5, I think 13, just starting to become a teenager, still madly in love with this show. And I'm sat here man, what the Jedi are doing right now is completely effed up. They're not going off of any evidence. They're just going off the things that they've seen, but they don't know the full story. And they've admitted that they don't know the full story. But because the Senate is bullying them right now, they're just okay, well, I guess we're just gonna, toss our hands up and just let the Senate deal with this. How dare you guys? She was one of your own.
It is the Council's opinion that Padawan AHSOKA Tano has committed sedition against the Republic, and thus she will be expelled from the Jedi Order.
You can't do this! Padawan status will be stripped from you, and you shall forfeit all rank and privileges within the Grand Army of the Republic. You will be turned over to the Republic courts to await your trial, and whatever punishment they will set for you. Henceforth, you are barred from the Jedi Order.
Like, oh man, and I felt so bad for Ahsoka. Like, you know, the scent down there, she just like has her head down and her eyes closed, and one of the temple guards just like rips the Padawan bead off of her. I was like, no, Ahsoka. So then she's put back in that prison that, you know, we found her in before. And it's like, okay, well, now she's going to go before the Senate. Somebody's got to represent her, according to Tarkin, that they recommended be somebody outside of the council. Well, luckily, Anakin knows somebody. Of course, that being Padme. I think this is the first time we've gotten Padme in this season. That's actually kind of crazy. And I remember at the time, too, I'm like, you know what? If there is anybody that I want to be defending Ahsoka right now, it's her. Like, her or Bail Organa would have been my top two options. So Padme was going to do this because, like, Ahsoka is, like, you know, her younger sister. We saw throughout the Clone Wars that the two had, like, you know, established a friendship with each other. So, of course, Padme was going to do this. But you also got to think about it as well. This could also have been, like, a career suicide moment for her. Because everyone, like, in that Senate, everybody that was on that court already had their decision made up before this trial even started. They saw what they wanted to see and took that as like, okay, well, this is our person that attacked the temple. This is the person that killed clones. And it's funny because I'm sure half of those senators don't even care about the clones anyway. Tarkin don't give a damn about them. And Ahsoka points out too, like, look, I'm sorry for not being optimistic here, but I thought I was really a part of that order, but everyone except Anakin has abandoned me. And to be honest, I doubt the Senate's going to really treat me any better. So I give Padme so much credit here for trying to do the right thing. Anakin goes to confront Ventress because that's the only lead he has right now. Anakin didn't think to question for 1 minute why Ventress wasn't using her lightsabers. Yeah, that's the problem with Anakin sometimes, right? He just kind of does without thinking. Poor Ahsoka is just put on trial in front of the Senate, and Tarkin's like ripping her to shreds. Man, Padme, she tried. I give her so much credit. She really tried. But again, it was never about what the facts were. This whole thing was just a mean to an end. And I think it's proven when I think Padme has some really good points, and she says, why would Ahsoka use a method that would have just so clearly tied the murder to her? Like, a Jedi is responsible, but members of the court, you are prosecuting the wrong Jedi. Title of this episode, haha. And I think the Jedi knew it too. I think Yoda knew it. I think Obi-Wan knew it. But again, it's like they're sitting there and they're just letting this all happen. And I'm not blaming Obi-Wan and Yoda specifically. Okay, that's not what that is. Like, obviously, this is a group effort of like the Jedi not knowing everything, the Senate not knowing everything. Like, no one thought to think like, okay, we'll keep Ahsoka in prison for now, but let's not do this trial right away. Let's make sure, let's continue this investigation a little bit and make sure we have all of the facts before we go out and kill the wrong person. Even Palpatine throws his 2 cents into this trial. He's like, people might think, well, surely this is not the saboteur that they all speak of. Who's saying that? The New York Post? And then he turns into like, well, think about how many times the separatists have fooled us and think, is this another separatist scheme? Aren't you supposed to be impartial, Chancellor, as like the head of the court here? Also, this is the first episode where the Chancellor is voiced by Tim Curry, because during the middle of this season, Ian Abercrombie unfortunately passed away, so this was the replacement voice for Palpatine. If I'm being perfectly honest with you guys, I think Tim Curry as Darth Sidious worked a little bit. Like, you'll kind of see it in the next season. I think him as Sidious works, but the Palpatine voice, which is, I think, meant to be like a little bit lighter than the Sidious, like the deep, dark Sidious voice, I don't know if I necessarily liked it. Like, it always just sounds weird to me hearing him as Palpatine. Even like today, as like we fast forward how many years later, like over a decade later, it still just doesn't feel Palpatine to me. But that's just my opinion. But listen, like, Tim Curry in Home Alone 2 is great. Great Christmas movie for those who need a movie to look for during the holidays. So Anakin has this talk with Ventress, and Anakin's like, okay, well, this all clearly leads me to a dead end. Like, you're the only one Ahsoka talked to. And I remember at the time, like, watching this, I'm like, wait, no, that's not true. That's not true. And Ventress, like, was thinking it right at the same time, too. Like, no, she did speak to somebody else. She spoke to Barriss.
Your Padawan contacted the temple. She spoke to someone named Barriss. That's why we knew to go to the warehouse in the first place. It was this Barriss that told us to go there.
So then Anakin goes off to, back to the temple. He speaks with Barriss. And, he thinks, well, I got a feeling that Ahsoka and Ventress are both telling the truth, but there's only one way to find out, because he had possession of Barriss's lightsaber and he was going to use it on her. And then Barriss pulls out Ventress's sabers to defend herself. So it's like, all right, there we go. That's the person that did it. And I was sat there like, man, Barriss, how could you do that to Ahsoka? She was your friend, unless she was never really your friend. Or like, you start asking the questions, right? Like, how long was she thinking about doing this? Like, when did this all come together? But in the immediate, though, Anakin and Barriss have this really good saber fight. Both of them carrying 2 lightsabers. She tries running, but cease hostility.
Cease hostility!
Oh, the good old temple guards. I like to meme that line a lot, the cease hostility line. I think if we go like deep lore here, I'm pretty sure they've made it a part of the lore now that like one of those temple guards is supposed to be the Grand Inquisitor. Yeah, crazy stuff, right? But then Anakin, as he's fighting Barriss, they end up making their way towards the area where the younglings are being trained, the same younglings that we see earlier on in the season. Petro even gets to have a line in this. He just goes, look out. And Anakin, right in front of all these kids and stuff, just kind of goes sort of like semi-dark side mode on her, just going like super aggressive Anakin style, It was like Barriss had no idea what she was messing with. That like force pull and then push back into the tree was crazy. So then the members of the court have reached a decision by an overwhelming count of, and Anakin stops it. Of course, he was most likely going to say by an overwhelming count of votes that they were going to find her guilty. Because once again, the majority of the people that they went into that trial already had their mind made up. But Anakin brings forth Barriss, member of the Jedi Order and traitor. And then Barriss gives this speech, confessing what she did. Now, I don't think I'm going to be able to play the whole thing on air, or I'm going to get like copyright claim for it. So I'm going to try to remember. I didn't even write it down either, but I think I've seen this episode so many times that I can piece the majority of what she said together. Like I think I know it off of memory for the most part. She essentially says, I did it because I have come to realize what many people in the Republic have come to realize, that the Jedi are the ones responsible for this war. That we've so lost our way, that we have become the villains in this conflict, that we should all be put on trial, every single one of us. And my attack on the temple is an attack on what the Jedi have become.
An army fighting for the dark side, fallen from the light that we once held so dear. This republic is failing. It's only a matter of time.
That frickin' line of my attack on the temple is an attack on what the Jedi have become, and that's an army fighting for the dark side, is probably the craziest line in this entire show. And I love that they cut to Palpatine when she says that too. Oh, it's so good. Because in a way, I don't think she's wrong. And I think this whole episode is proving that. Ventress tells Anakin earlier on too, right? My master abandoned me, and that's exactly what you did to her. You and your precious Jedi Order. And that was another moment of this episode where I'm like, yeah, man, the Jedi freaking suck right now. These guys are crazy. What are they doing? Barriss does have a point in all of this. Do I think that she needed to blow up the Jedi Temple to say it? No. And I think this is something that's mentioned in the Ahsoka novel. But Ahsoka talks about like the whole thing of Barriss being put, on trial and confessing her crimes. And Ahsoka mentions, like, if we would have listened to her and, like, actually truly listened, then maybe we would have been able to stop Palpatine before it was too late. Like, maybe we could have seen that whole thing coming. And we're going to get into it in the next season. Season 6 really personifies how, quite frankly, dumb the Jedi are. With everything that comes to light, they should have been able to see Palpatine coming. But they didn't. And we'll get into that. But man, like everything that Barriss said, like this was a crazy part of this episode. And man, it as if it didn't get crazy enough, we then get the final part of this episode. All the Jedi Council members, like, they're sat there talking with Ahsoka. Plo apologizes. Anakin apologizes. I think Stacey Tin says something like, you've shown great strength and struggle, in order to prove your innocence. And Kiadi says, this is a true sign of a Jedi Knight. And my first reaction, I remember when I was watching this at 13, was like, wait, are they going to make her a Jedi Knight? And then Mace Windu, dickhead Mace Windu, goes, yeah, basically, everything that happened today was actually all a part of the plan and all a part of the Force's design. We know that it kind of works in mysterious ways, but hey, listen, today you've proven to be a far better Jedi than you would have otherwise. The f do you mean it was all going according to plan? Y'all were about to kill her. You put her on trial before the Senate. If Anakin hadn't found Barriss, if he hadn't found the truth, that wasn't gonna end well. What do you mean that was part of the plan? You sound like Road Dogg talking about Daniel Bryan winning the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 30. Like, oh, it was always the plan, guys. We weren't trying to bury the guy. We weren't trying to just send him on a massive losing streak and keep him away from the main event scene. All right, I feel like very few people are gonna get that, but I'm sorry, I'm ranting here. So then Yoda says that she's welcome back into the Order, and Anakin pulls out the Padawan bead, and there's just like this, like maybe a good 15-20 seconds of like figuring out like, okay, what's she gonna do here? Like, is she gonna take it? Is she not gonna take it? What's she doing? Like, she's thinking about it, and she puts her hand out. She puts out her left hand like she's going to take it. And it's a really nice moment. Like, they have the camera shot in on their two hands, and Ahsoka, as it looks like she's gonna take it, she takes her right hand and places it on Anakin's, and takes her left hand and pushes his fingers sort of back into a ball to like hold the Padawan bead back, and she pushes it away. Look like she's about to start crying.
I'm sorry, Master, but I'm not coming back.
And she goes, I'm sorry, Master, but I'm not coming back. And at the time I was like, whoa, she's going? What does that mean for Ahsoka in the show? What's going on right now? What? Anakin runs out of the room to talk to her. Obi-Wan's about to run out too, but Plo Koon stops him. No, this is a moment between Master and Padawan. And Ahsoka's leaving. She's going towards the entrance of the temple near the stairway, and Anakin's running after her.
Why are you doing this?
The Council didn't trust me, so how can I trust myself?
What about me? I believed in you. I stood by you.
I know you believe in me, Anakin, and I'm grateful for that. But this isn't about you. I can't stay here any longer. Not now.
Anakin says, the Jedi Order is your life. You can't just throw it away like this. You're making a mistake, Ahsoka. She says, maybe, but I have to sort this out on my own without the Council and without you. And Anakin says, look, I understand. More than you realize, I understand wanting to walk away from the Order. I'm sure you do, Anakin. And Ahsoka just responds, I know. And that, to me, I always took that as like in the back of her mind that she always knew about him and Padme. And Ahsoka, with tears in her eyes, starts walking away towards the stairs. Anakin looks all sad. There's this sad music playing. And she walks down the stairs. There's this beautiful like skylight shot in the background. There was something in the behind the scenes where like they went out and shot like the sky one day at Skywalker Ranch, and it just the way that it looked, it was so beautiful. And they're like, we have to use this. So they took that and they put that in the episode. And instead of the traditional ba-da-da-da like ending, which I think a lot of people have kind of memed at this point, right? Like you'll be in the middle of like a deep, meaningful episode of Clone Wars, like, oh, it's beautiful, ba-da-da-da, you know, like it is kind of funny in a way, right? But this episode doesn't end like that. It ends with the sad music continuing. And this was the first time in my fandom as a Star Wars fan that I remember my eyes getting watery, and I probably shedded a tear too while I was at it. I was, man, this, like the ending hit me. And this is the first time that I think something ever really hit me like that, you know? And again, it wasn't like I was like completely crying, but it's like, I remember my eyes got watery and I was like, man, like this was an emotional ending. And I think you guys got to keep in mind too, around the time of like season 5 and around the time of its end, I remember close to that time when I was like 13, 14, when I started getting like an actual cell phone, not a flip phone. Because yes, believe it or not, I had a flip phone back in the day. I'm sure most kids nowadays probably have no idea what that even is. But I remember like starting to tap myself into the internet realm and the YouTube realm and understanding what all of that is. I don't know. I can't remember when they officially announced that Clone Wars was canceled. Okay, so I'm looking at it here. Disney's acquisition of Disney was in late 2012. Yes, that's right. And then Clone Wars was canceled in March of 2013. But either way, it wasn't until like weeks or maybe even like a couple months after this episode that I figured out that the Clone Wars was getting canceled. And that shit hurt me. And I remember that whenever I would go back and watch that episode at the time and watching Ahsoka walk away, I remember that I would start sobbing because I felt like it honestly felt, you guys, like I had lost a loved one close to me, like a close friend or a close family member. I honestly felt like that's how I treated the Clone Wars getting canceled. This show had been a part of me for 5 years. I grew up with it, and the show grew with me. I know I've mentioned it in a few videos before, just like loosely, but I hated school. School was never my thing. And the thing that would get me through every single week of school was thinking about what the next Clone Wars episode was going to be. I would daydream about it in class. Probably why I wasn't the best student either. I was like, I don't care about learning sciencey stuff. I don't care about math stuff. I want to know like what adventure Anakin and Ahsoka are going to go on next week. What's Darth Maul doing back in the show? So I said before that this episode holds a special place with me. It's really because, you guys, it kind of felt like a part of me died that day that I figured out that this show was getting canceled, because it really meant this was the last episode. And the last thing I see is this character that I'd become so fond of, maybe without even necessarily realizing it, how fond I had become of her. And seeing her walk away, and potentially just as bad as the Clone Wars getting canceled, I thought I was never going to see Ahsoka again in future Star Wars storytelling, because I didn't know what the future of Star Wars storytelling was going to hold. I know that with Disney that they were going to start working on 7, 8, and 9, but like, I don't think I ever necessarily thought like that was going to be stuff involving Ahsoka. Like, obviously I thought that would center on like the original trilogy heroes, right? Like Luke and Han and Leia. So to me, I always took this as like, this was the end.
So that's it? The group's over?
And I remember that's why I would always get so upset and stuff. And I would spend so much time like getting emotional about it behind closed doors, because it felt like I was grieving. But how do you tell somebody that you're grieving over a television show getting canceled and the idea of you never seeing a fictional character again? Like, how do you do that? So I kept to myself about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I took that and I grieved with it in my own way. And I think, honestly, you guys, like, if I'm being perfectly honest with myself, like, I am a very introverted person. So whenever, like, something happens, it's like I always, like, I'll sometimes just need time to myself anyway, because that's just kind of the person I've become. Honestly, maybe Clone Wars and that episode had a little bit to do with it. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like, that's just, you know, kind of who I am. So it was really this episode, and really, when I think back about it in hindsight, it was the entire show that got me to this point where I could truly say Ahsoka is my favorite Star Wars character. The journey that she went on, that it felt like I went on with her. I have never, probably ever, felt more connected to a character the way I did her. And I know that, like, kind of sounds weird to say, right? Like, I get it. It's weird. The way I always kind of saw it, like, looking back on it in hindsight, is like she was the sister I never had. And it felt like I was going on these adventures every week with her, because she was one of the main characters of the show. If the show is still going, right, and Ahsoka walks away, like, that's one thing, because I was kind of certain, like, okay, obviously they're going to show more episodes with Ahsoka, but no, we don't even have that chance anymore. Again, this is like before Star Wars Rebels, before any of that. I truly in that moment felt like, well, there's no more Ahsoka. And that was such a shame to me. We can talk about it a little bit more next week when we talk about season 5 as a whole, and like how the Clone Wars ending like really made me upset, and how I was upset that we weren't going to see the future of like other characters and stories as well. But if we're going to focus, like, you know, just kind of keep it focused on this, right? Because it's Ahsoka centered thing. Ahsoka was like the first character oddly enough, that I guess made me feel like I was a nerd. Like, that I'm kind of thinking about it, because, like, don't get me wrong, like, I had my favorite childhood movies, my favorite childhood shows and stuff, but the Clone Wars, I always said, like, Star Wars was, like, the biggest part of my fandom, and, like, then when I thought more of it, it was like, this is her show. And this is someone that, again, I would wonder, like, what's she going to do the next week? Or, like, what are some of these other characters going to be doing the next week? And Disney took that from me. And I know that might sound selfish to say, like, oh, Disney took this from me specifically. But, like, I think anybody that invested their time and effort into this show, or have invested time and effort into any show that gets canceled, you understand what I mean. I met Ashley Eckstein, like, one time at Star Wars Celebration. And it was for a photo op. So it was like one of those quick, hi, bye, thank you for the photo sort of thing. I went to take a photo with Ashley, and I was wearing my Ahsoka Lives shirt. And I went up to her. I was like, Ahsoka Lives, because that was like the big thing at the time. And she got excited about it. We took our photo. And like right before I leave the tent, I turn around to her and I say, she's my favorite Star Wars character. And she said, thank you so much. And I said, thank you back. And I walked out of the tent. And I remember as I was taking the walk out of the tent, I all of a sudden just started feeling water coming down out of my eyes. And usually, like, whenever you're about to cry, like, you can feel it, right? But, like, I didn't feel like I was about to cry. It was just like, it was just happening. It felt like an out-of-body experience that I was having. Like, I never felt that before. And again, it just, I think, again, just personifies like how much that character means to me. And that's why I really hope that one day that I get the chance to like speak with Ashley again. So I have the chance, to be able to tell her thank you for everything that she brought to this character, because it is through her and through that performance that I think I'm the person that I am today. Damn it. All right, I feel like I could just ramble on hours at this point about how much I love the Ahsoka character. Again, maybe we'll talk a little bit more next week about, the Clone Wars getting canceled and how the show overall, how that affected me. But yeah, geez, I think this is probably like the most personal I think we've gotten in this show here. So thank you guys for putting up with me this week. All right, you guys, I think I'm going to wrap this up here for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Next week, we're going to be talking about season 5. And then, I'm sure in like 2 or 3 weeks time, you guys, we're going to get into season 6. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this video with others to help support the channel. Please click that hype button, and I will see you guys next time.
On your right! Sister!
Destroyers! We've lost our momentum! Fall back!